Officials say there's now more water in Tulare Lake than in some of the state's reservoirs, but fears have eased of extreme flooding in surrounding communities.
A natural marvel is unfolding in the heart of California's Central Valley. For what appears to have been a few minutes ago, Tulare Lake, a once vast expanse of water that attracted both wildlife and visitors alike, started to make a remarkable comeback. However, it's not alone, as it brings something quite terrifying. What could that possibly be? What does it mean for the people staying around the lake? We get to find out in this video. California, as we know it, is one of those states in the US blessed with a diverse array of water bodies, ranging from the majestic Pacific Ocean to picturesque rivers, lakes, and reservoirs. Over the years, these water bodies have provided several benefits to the state's people. Still, suddenly, they've taken a concerning turn, and the waters once regarded as beneficial are starting to pose a significant threat to the state. One of those water bodies now posing a threat to the cities and people around it is Tulare Lake. The news about Tulare Lake was somewhat around the midweek of April 2023. According to the reports, Tulare Lake, once known as a dormant lake with barely enough water, had refilled for the first time in decades, and it's still rising. This came as welcome news for the people of Allensworth, Opal, and Corcoran, especially for the farmers, as they'd suffered a long drought. The drought didn't only make things hard in the planting season. Farm animals barely had enough to drink at the time. The people in the urban regions weren't left out to face the harsh drought conditions. The groundwater supply diminished by a large margin, and there was barely enough to drink and use in the different households, so you can imagine the joy everyone felt. Little did they know that things were going to go bad quickly. The lake had risen to reach its capacity in no time, but it didn't stop there. It kept on rising to the extent of overflowing its boundaries. You can imagine how this must have come as a shock, especially because of the past drought history the lake had faced. Questions started to fly around, asking how it happened and what could be the cause of this sudden and drastic experience. To properly unravel the answers to these questions, we have to go back to the very beginning. Situated in California's expansive San Joaquin Valley, Tulare Lake possesses a rich historical narrative that intricately intertwines native heritage, the era of colonization, and the ever-changing dynamics of the region's geography. Over generations, this lake stood as a vital lifeline for the Yokuts and other indigenous tribes residing in the vicinity. Its fertile shores offered an abundant source of nourishment, with fishing, hunting, and gathering serving as integral components of their way of life. Thanks to the lake's ecosystem abounding with aquatic life and waterfowl, it fostered what you'd call a profound bond between the communities and the natural environment they coexisted with. The trajectory of Tulare Lake took a decisive turn with the arrival of European settlers in the 19th century. This was the same time when agriculture took root in the fertile valley. The introduction of agriculture led to the redirection of water from the lake, which was pivotal in nurturing the crops that are now California's agricultural prominence. However, this same transformation had significant implications for the native inhabitants. The manipulation of the lake's hydrology and the diversion of its resources led to the uprooting of indigenous communities, disrupting their way of life. Being one of California's natural lakes, Tulare Lake's origin goes back a long time, before human settlement. It was shaped by several geological forces responsible for the valley and the lake's waterways. The lake is fueled by the runoff from the Sierra Nevada mountains and fed by rivers such as Kaweah, Tule, and Kings. Time after time, these rivers contribute their waters, making Tulare Lake what it is. That's why you see different fluctuations in the water level of the lakes, responding to cycles of abundance and drought. During periods of heavy precipitation, the lake could swell to cover over 1,500 square miles, ranking as one of the largest freshwater lakes in the United States. And it took several pioneers to establish something worthwhile in its fertile environs. This is one of the reasons that San Joaquin is currently known for its solid foundation in extensive agribusiness. However, Unknown to the pioneers that had settled in the area, there were darker days to come. During the 20th century, California was scarred by a series of droughts. These droughts lasted for several years, diminishing the water bodies in the state, and Tulare Lake wasn't exempt. As a matter of fact, with water sources dwindling and precipitation reaching an unimaginable low, you can say Tulare Lake had it rough. Not to mention the continuous and constant usage of the water for agricultural use. It wasn't long before the water level saw a sharp decline. At some point, they even started calling the lake a ghost lake, depicting how much the once vibrant lake had died off. And somehow, all of this takes us back to the present issue. How did a lake so desiccated suddenly start rising high enough to overshadow its banks and beyond? Did the people of the land have a hand in the affair, or was it one of those inexplicable hands of nature that touched the lake? Let's move on to the next part of this video. It gets more interesting than this. How did Tulare Lake start rising so fast in the first place? Tulare Lake started to rise after the prolonged dry years that had gripped California ended through a combination of climatic shifts. This was thanks to the emergence of California's assumed favorable climate patterns. It all started with the storms that visited California in December 2022. As announced, several storms had led to the accumulation of the highest level of snowpack that the state had ever seen since 1982. According to the professionals in charge of the Department of Water Resources, they estimated and compared the water content of the snowpacks for both 1982 and 2022 to be 234 and 235% respectively, an absurdly high record they'd ever seen. Since December, they blamed this sudden oversized snowpack on the 17 atmospheric rivers continuously hitting the state. One might wonder what these so-called atmospheric rivers are. Well, atmospheric rivers are dynamic and narrow bands of moisture-laden air that transport vast amounts of water vapor across great distances within Earth's atmosphere. These meteorological phenomena are often likened to rivers in the sky due to their significant role in transporting water vapor from regions of high moisture, such as the Pacific Ocean, to land areas. As the atmospheric rivers made landfall in California, they led to a prolonged and intense period of precipitation, resulting in not just heavy rainfall in several regions of the state, but snowfalls capable of forming enormous snowpacks in the Sierra. According to gridded analysis from the National Weather Service, the snowiest spots in several places in the Sierra all recorded an all-time high since it started to track snowfall. Places like Sugar Bowl and Dodge Ridge reached a substantial total of 755 and 722 inches, while Boreal Mountain reached 723 inches. Other parts like China Peak and Kirkwood reached 696 inches and 695 inches respectively, showing how much of an impact the snowfall had. Wondering how the snowpack relates to the rise in Tulare Lake? You should remember that we once mentioned the Sierra Nevada mountains as one of the geological bodies fueling Tulare Lake. It does so through the accumulation and melting of the snowpacks we discuss. Think of the Sierra snowpack as a natural reservoir that accumulates during winter due to heavy snowfall. Eventually, as temperatures rise with the onset of summer and spring, the snowpack starts to melt, joining rivers like the Kaweah, Kings, and Tule. But as rivers go, they don't stop there. As the waters from the river continue to flow due to further snowmelt from the mountain, they meander through the landscapes of the San Joaquin Valley and head southward. That's where they converge with Tulare Lake. As you must have understood, snowpack size determines the water volume that'll flow into Tulare Lake. Let's just say the Sierra Nevada mountains have a lot of snowpacks that haven't yet melted. What's worse, the high temperatures of summer are also involved, as they'll determine how fast the snowpacks will melt and how fast the waters will fill up Lake Tulare. All of these factors are the reasons behind the rise and overflow of Lake Tulare. The re-emergence and overflow of Lake Tulare. What does it mean for the cities around the lake, and how are the people coping? No doubt, the re-emergence of Lake Tulare came as a relief for the natives and farmers around the lake, but what came as a blessing quickly turned into a nightmare. The water infrastructure was hoping to control the waters from the rivers if there was a slow snowmelt, but that doesn't seem to be going as planned. Aside from the snowpacks, the authorities had failed to account for the seismic activity and erosion that had played major roles in sculpting the terrain of Tulare Lake. The seismic events shifted the landforms and created several pathways for the water to flow more freely. Furthermore, the gradual erosion of surrounding terrain, driven by natural processes such as wind, water, and sediment movement, further deepened water channels and modified the lake's natural drainage system. This is why there's a large volume of water beyond the control of the water infrastructure. When considering the areas affected by the flooding from Lake Tulare, the places most affected are the farmlands. The waters that have submerged the once arid expanse of Tulare Lake's basins have overflowed, covering vast stretches used for cultivating tomatoes, cotton, and pistachios, destroying the reputation of what was once an epicenter of agriculture in California. Aside from that, roads, homes, and power infrastructure close to the farmlands were also submerged, but it didn't stop there. After the attack on the farmland, it wasn't too long before computer models started to simulate the flood affecting communities like Stratford, Corcoran, Allensworth, and Olpa. One can say Corcoran was the community with the most potential to experience the wrath of the flood from Tulare Lake. Before they got hit, the Deputy State Floodplain Manager for the California Department of Water Resources, Mehdi Mizani, had already ordered several million sandbags to the at-risk regions. This was to help reduce the possible impact the flood would have on the community. The Democratic governor, Gavin, also had a hand in the affair. He gave out $17 million for the cause to ensure that the levees protecting the city of Corcoran were raised. However, you can say that it didn't go as planned. The levees, which were supposed to serve as a crucial defense against flooding, faced an unexpected challenge during the long period of drought. They'd sunken deep into the ground, and it was quite hard to raise them. This challenge was due to the excessive water withdrawn from the ground for agricultural irrigation and urban use. Still, that wasn't all the governor had done to curb the menace of the flood. Earlier the same year, he signed an executive order for the locals to use floodwater to refill groundwater basins. As stated, the aim was to ensure the state refills a minimum of 500,000 acre-feet of groundwater in a year, but somehow they later increased the number to ensure the severity of the flood was at a minimum. For the towns of Allensworth and Olpa, the Tulare sheriff took a safer and more desperate measure. Before the peak of the entire ordeal, he issued an evacuation of the two communities. The sheriff said the recent flooding in the area and pathways prompted the order. While at it, he urged everyone to prepare for the upcoming water hazards that might hit the region. The evacuation plan was meant to proceed via Avenue 55 westbound to Virginia Avenue 6th Avenue and several other lanes. The endeavor was successful, but we can't say the same for the properties and houses in the communities that are sitting ducks and waiting to be ravaged by the flood from the lake. One can say that the people in these communities are having it rough. Aside from the physical damage the overflowing lake is causing in the area, there seems to be a biological issue. The stagnant water resulting from the flooded region in Tulare poses a dual threat that demands our immediate attention. Firstly, this stagnant water creates an ideal breeding ground for mosquitoes, which can rapidly multiply and spread diseases like West Nile and Zika. It provides a fertile environment for mosquito larvae to thrive, exacerbating the risk of disease transmission. Moreover, the contamination of this stagnant water is a pressing concern. As water remains stagnant, it becomes a reservoir for pollutants, agricultural runoff, and waste, leading to potential waterborne diseases and contamination of local water supplies. Addressing these issues is essential to safeguarding both public health and the region's delicate ecosystem. As we wrap up this thrilling journey, it's clear that the rising waters of Tulare Lake are revealing more than we could have ever imagined. The eerie emergence of a force capable of causing large-scale damage like this one within a short period sends shivers down our spines, and we can only hope the phase eventually passes. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a moment of our explorations. See you next time. Bye.